Good afternoon, Anne Arundel County. Good afternoon, America. Welcome to Promoting. Don't get fooled again with class. This is episode 29. We have 29 posts. I'm pretty excited about that. Yes, these are wonderful times here in Anne Arundel County. My name is Anthony Bynum. I'm the host, and the name of our production company is the Glen Burnie Players. So as I was saying, these are exciting times here in Anne Arundel County. We've had some beautiful weather the last couple of days. I do want to I'll mention a few things before we get started with the show. We want to give credit where credit is due. So we use Wikipedia, but we also, this week, I have a source from hellopoetry.com. Now, a couple of announcements before we start the show. Episode 9, the Anne Arundel, we call it the Spelling Bee. Actually, we call it the Anne Arundel Spelling Bee with Dignity and Grace, the first annual. That will start going on the air in the next couple of days. I've sent it over to AAC TV. It's already on our YouTube page, which is at Anthony Bynum 1948. So you can see it there, but it's also going to be coming to the big screen, so to speak. That one went right down to the wire, folks. It was great excitement. An adult spelling bee. It was great, great excitement. This weekend, this Saturday, is a makeup day for the Kunta Kinte Festival that's held in Annapolis. I'm going to check that one out myself. A lot of great material that's going to be going on at the Kunta Kinte Festival in Annapolis down by the pier. Also, December 2nd, we're going to be shooting the Anne Arundel Men of the Cloth. Now, we're actually going to be shooting that at Regal Studios, or Regal Productions, rather, which is in Annapolis. It'll take a couple weeks to edit that, but we're real excited about that opportunity. We want to tell the story of our clergy and all the things that they do, all the important things they do in our society right here in Anne Arundel County. So that's coming up, but that's a little ways away from now. So as far as this week's episode is concerned, I'm going to start off by doing a little screen share. I think you're going to enjoy the screen share, folks. Pam Grier, born 5/26/1949. Pam was born to a Air Force sergeant who was also a mechanic and a homemaker mom. So she came from a very stable family. She may be our first female action figure, okay? Cool, pretty, and look at the pictures. I mean, you know, come on, she's sexy. I mean, she just is, right? She made her way to the big screen in 1971. Actually, she was working as a secretary at the American International Pictures, where she was discovered by Jack Hill, who actually directed all those movies she did from basically 71 to 75. Like I said, 71 was her first on the shot of the big screen, but it was 1973 movie called Coffee that was really the movie. Now, the story was about a female vigilante who seeks revenge against a heroin dealer who was responsible for her sister's addiction. And here was the tagline, folks. Call her coffee. She'll cream you. Oh my goodness. I'm going to say that again. They call her coffee. She'll cream you. That's a great tagline, right? Yes, she was beautiful. But here's the bottom line. The ratio of 4-1. You see that movie? And it wasn't the first. It was like 2 years down the road after she had already did a couple movies. It cost the studio $500,000 to make, which is a lot of money. Even today, that's a lot of money. But it made $2 million. In Hollywood, that's a win-win. Now, she was a regular from, like I said, from 71 to 75, but then she went through a time when she wasn't working, probably typecast for a little bit. And in Hollywood, that's pretty scary. But she got back on the horse about 80, 81, and she's been working ever since. Ever since. Pam Grier. Who? But yes, I am going to have to stop sharing. Sorry, folks. I'm going to do another screen share, but this is a little different as we move on to something of consequence regarding Anne Arundel County. So let's go to the share, and we're going to go here and push this button right here. Okay. So at this home, 3 stories are going to merge. So we start with part 1. I moved to a place called Inverness Woods back in 1992 with my wife, Dolores. That's in Ferndale. And this was our first house. The undeveloped property where the development was created was owned by a Roland Brooks, who nickname was Skip, and his uncle, who we called Mr. Brooks. Sometime later, I met a gentleman who lived in that general vicinity. His name, he just called himself Roscoe. He was senior to me. But I found out very quickly that his mother nicknamed was Snake. We would talk on Saturdays from time to time. We always had a great time talking because we always found something to talk about. Yes, I grew a true friendship with this man named Roscoe. Now, Roscoe had worked for Sears. He worked in maintenance, so he could fix anything. And he eventually used those skills to get involved in the real estate game, in that he was a trusted person, and he understood the front footage assessment in Anne Arundel County. In other words, he understood the cost to bring electric and water to a house. So when some of the older folks who lived in the area, the house was in repair, they needed to move on, or it was time for them to go, or those kind of things, they would sell their houses to Roscoe, and Roscoe would fix them up and made sure they stayed in with good people. I remember Roscoe one time telling me about this house, 341 Welham Avenue, which was in a bit of disrepair also, and how it had belonged to a famous Black architect, and how he wanted to buy that house. I remember him telling me that. But he would also tell me occasionally about his daughter, or daughters rather, who were going to come to visit him. He would never say who they were. He would just say, I might see my daughters today. Part 2. I worked for the Maryland Automobile Insurance Fund for many years. We call it MAVE. One of my colleagues there during the end stretch for me, probably the last 10 years, was someone named Oderis Adams. We formed a professional relationship, usually around litigation cases. At that time, I was a field person, a field investigator. She might send me to a pretrial conference where we were trying to hold the line, if you know what I mean. Insurance people know what that means. Or I might be somebody I needed to track down so we could defend a case. That was the main part of my function, finding folks, getting them to cooperate. Now, one time I remember seeing Oderis over at Cromwell Station back when the Giant was open over there. I knew she didn't live there, but we just kind of talked, and she eventually went her own way. She didn't really say why she was in the area. Part 3. I moved away from Inverness Woods back in the early 2000s, 2001 as I remember. I rarely saw Roscoe, but every now and then I would see the guy. And every time it was like old times. It was like old times with that guy. Matter of fact, I remember this one story. I want to make sure I share this. One time on a Saturday morning, I was leaving the neighborhood and I saw Roscoe talking with Roland. I didn't know they were friends, actually. Although everyone over there is friends with somebody, you know what I mean. But they didn't know that I knew both their nicknames. So I got out of the car and I say, well, if it isn't Skip and Snake. Boy, that was a lively conversation that day, boy. Yeah. Just some guys having a good time and talking, you know. Well, as I said, I moved away in the early 2000s and rarely saw Roscoe at that point. But in the last 6 months or so, while going over to John Wesley United Methodist Church in Glen Burnie, I passed by this house all the time. I remember Roscoe. I remember his wife, Goldie. So out of the blue, one day after church, I just stopped and knocked on the door. I said, I'm going to see my old friend, Roscoe. A woman came to the door. That woman was Odaris Adams. I was so surprised to see her. We greeted each other. She knew I had lots of questions, but she ushered me in and we sat down and we talked, and we just kind of talked because, I had retired from Maine in 2017. I hadn't seen her for a while either, actually. Before I could ask any questions, she brought me an obituary. She brought me Roscoe's obituary. And that kind of hurt. That hurt bad. I had a hard time gathering myself after that. I love Roscoe. He's a great person, great friend. Now I try to keep up with Odaris a little bit if I can. Letter here, letter there, that kind of thing. Matter of fact, last weekend I went over and I visited Goldie. That was fun. Kind of catching up with her a little bit. The good times, it's what we live for, the good times. Well, part 4. Since that time, I found out the name of the builder. His name was John D.C. Cecilio. John D.C. Cecilio. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. He built the house in 1953. But I tried to look up to see if I saw some sort of reference about his being a famous architect or something along those lines. I really couldn't find anything else on him, so I can't really speak intelligently about him at all. But what I can say is that house represents a lot. 2 great friendships, great lives lived, the way we're supposed to live those lives. Well, we want to stop sharing, so I'm going to push the stop sharing button. Next thing I want to do is read a poem. This poem is written by W.B. Yeats. It's called When You're Old. When you're old and gray and full of sleep and nodding by the fire, take down this book and slowly read and dream of the soft look your eyes once had in their shadows deep. How many loved your moments of glad grace and loved your beauty with love false or true? But one man loved the pilgrim soul in you and loved the sorrows in your changing face. And bending down beside the glowing bars, murmur a little sadly how love fled and paced upon the mountains overhead and hid his face amid the crowd of stars. W.B. Yeats. So, just to recap, look for it maybe as early as tomorrow, but probably you're looking at Monday for episode 9, The Spelling Bee. Like I said, folks, it went right down to the wire. 12/2, we're going to be shooting the Anne Arundel Men of Faith. Please look out for the GoFundMe account we've started. If you're going to be in this space and you're going to do what I consider important television, it's got to be paid for. It's got to be paid for. So, for everyone here at the Glen Burnie Players, my name is Anthony Bynum. Until next time, bye-bye.